All right, I am under the 914 this morning. I'm doing some test fitting on the front pan. I still have yet to get the throttle cable, speedo cable, clutch cable. Also, I need the fuel line kit from Tangerine Racing to replace all those rotten OE fuel lines. So test fitting this pan the way I decided to change things out, a little bit tricky. Let me show you what I'm looking at right now. Okay, so if you remember, I decided to keep the original pedal board bracket, pedal assembly bracket, just because locating that in regards to the original pan and making sure it lined up with the brake cylinder, master cylinder, was going to be a little tricky. I've never actually, I don't know that I've ever installed one of those. I've always kind of worked around them. So I'm getting real close. The Restoration Design front pan comes with the holes drilled for the mounting bolts. I think the way this is going to end up, well, the first thing is this flange on the Restoration Design part, it's only bent out to like a 45. So it's kind of up to you to finish bending it out. I don't know, on the first car I put a pan in, all this was rotten here. So I ended up using that metal, just flattening it out and going across and mating it with the inner fender well. And that worked out pretty good on that car. On this one, most of that metal is intact except over here, where you can see much the same. It has happened. It's rotted out. So probably what I'll do on this side is flatten it, cut that seam, it's not a seam weld, it would be where the inner fender joins with the pan, cut that out, and then weld it across here. So effectively do two things at once. You know, I can kind of eliminate some of those perforations underneath there. Ultimately, I'll still have to get in here and put at least one patch in somewhere on the inner fender. Same thing over here. You can actually see where I've been doing some beating, but I got a pretty big hole right there. This part looks pretty good here until you get in there with a wire brush, and I guarantee you some stuff's going to open up. So that being said, mating the replacement part to the small fragment of floor pan. Now note that the floor pan on these cars, as manufactured, actually wraps all the way up and over it becomes part of the fuel compartment. The floor of the fuel compartment is the only way to describe it. Yeah, it's just one big piece. So somewhere you have to join the two together. So in this case, I think what I'm going to do is take this metal and get the new metal to slide underneath it. And note that I've got some perforations there I'll have to deal with. That way, as you're going down the road, the original metal is lapped over, right? And it won't catch road debris as much. I mean, ultimately it all gets a seam sealer anyway, but it just, to me, makes more sense. So my next deal is I got to kind of pry this out where I can get this metal to slide under it, and we'll see how that works. All right, so I trimmed off the lip where the two pieces of metal are spot welded together, and you see I've got good overlap there. Of course, I'll have to do some work on this, kind of straighten it out, but I'll pull all that together as I'm welding with either sheet metal screws or something. And then, boy, it's super close here, but I'll be able to join that. May require some stitching or whatever. But down here, I've got a good lap. You can see the bolts are lined up with the holes on the restoration design piece. And then on this side, I'll do it proper factory-like, where then this will all be pulled together, where this is turned down. It's just, if you get into this, you're gonna have to look at how much material you have remaining on these fenders. That's what kind of drives a boat. Because when those fenders rot out, it's just not an option unless you rebuild all that inner fender, which even I've replaced this little contour here, and that's a hard patch to make, because you got this bend like this, you got this bend, right? You got multiple bends, and it's just tough. Now what I'll do is, that's where I spot welded on the inside. I'll just make a little patch right here. There's good metal back in here. I'll wire brush it back to confirm all that. But I'll have to do that there. And the same is probably true here. I haven't wire brushed it yet, but then you can also see here we have the same issue as the other side. So, that's a problem area. That rust, I think, is mostly from inside of the gasoline fuel tank compartment. It collects water in that valley on the inside and corrodes from the inside out. So anyway, good test fitting. Now the fun part's going to be getting this thing off. It was a little tricky to get the piece to go over the bolts and all this metal to kind of lap and line up, but I'm glad I did it. I'll do some marks. I'll mark where this bracket is. There are some nuts on the other side, because you got bolts that go up and then bolts that come down. So I'll need to mark this and drill that pan. I've got a bunch of spot welds I'll need to mark. I'll do spot welds all along this lip as much as I can. And of course, all down this side. And then in the back here, I've got a ton of lap. I'm not even going to trim that. That's just going to add strength. When I pull that together, that's 2 layers of metal right there in the middle of the pan where you need it. So yeah, I'm just going to leave that and lap the hell out of it. What doesn't really matter. All right, well, I just thought you guys would be interested in how all this lines up, because once I get those cables and those fuel lines in there, this should go pretty quick. And thanks for watching.